All right, trying something new. This rearranged the whoops, oh, okay. Rearranged the hands-free uh device here to have my phone pointing a little bit so that the hands-free device has got a suction cup. You can kind of see there a little bit off to the right. It's got a suction cup there. And so you can kind of see that, but it was right in the middle. So I just had to kind of reorient it a little bit so I could get like the driver's view, and then the the picture in picture here that the iPhone, what is it, 17? Yeah, iPhone 17 Pro Max. So it allows you to do a picture in picture while you're recording, which is kind of cool. Um, so you can kind of see where I'm driving occasionally. I don't know if it switches on the fly, and I'm not going to try it while I'm driving. Going to keep my eyes on the road, right? So, oh, here you got it right. Damn. All right, this is my sometimes view. Now, to your left is the new light rail that's going across the floating bridge, which is kind of a big deal. If you think about how rails work and how bridges that float, like cause that to be a problem. A lot of engineering went into that, a lot of money. It was controversial ish. A lot of people complain about it because, I don't know. People like to complain about things. They like to drive. Okay. That's the thing is people like to drive. Um, they think that would be better used for, I don't know. We need a public transportation system. It just is a fact. Real cities have public transportation systems. And so, when you go to Portland and you see their back system, and it's really nice. You go to New York, you go to Chicago, Tokyo. Tokyo is all about public transportation. Couldn't get around that place without public transportation. People have cars, yes. Those are cars. They use them on the weekends. Very few people are using them as a daily drive because it's just silly. It's ridiculous. And so best best way to have a public transportation system is a train system of some kind. So that works. And the big issue with this area is we have that deep lake. Now, it's not just so much that it's a deep lake. We have bridges over deep things. We have tunnels under deep rivers, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that it's probably loud in here in a tunnel. I guess you could tell now that I've got this view, you can actually see it. The problem is that it's soft on the bottom. It's really soft, so they couldn't put pylons in, or caissons or whatever they are. They couldn't put them in because they would just pull out. So they would just so they have cables down there holding the bridge straight. That bridge actually sank once. It has been replaced because it did sink. And it's a long story. Maybe I can get into it sometime. But one time, water got in one of the openings during a storm, and it just sank. So that got rebuilt. It had a carpool lane in the middle, which switched back and forth. It was like, in the mornings, it was carpool lane heading into town. In the evenings, it was a carpool lane heading out of town. Actually, these days, that doesn't make that much sense because the commute is going both ways. Three or four different directions in this town right now. So, anyways, so this train now connects downtown Seattle to downtown Redmond, going through Mercer Island, which we're currently on. We're currently on this island called Mercer Island. And then it connects over here to Bellevue. And then from Bellevue, it goes on to Redmond. And that's the terminus there at a mall called Redmond Town Center, which is a whole other rant, which I might get to at some point. But it's basically, the rant is how in the U.S. we have such a hard time allowing businesses, for-profit businesses, to cooperate with public services. If you go to Japan, just by way of example, I guess we're taking into it. Okay. If you go to Japan and you go to their, get on one of their trains, and you go to any of the major and even a lot of the minor train stations, you will go out of the station and right into a mall. I mean, not a mall, a department store, like, 10-story department store, and with 4 stories below, with inside the train station. Sometimes, I mean, most of the time, you try it inside the train stations. There is also some kind of store, and that store could be anything. I mean, there's a Uniqlo in Ikebukuro, one of the central stations in Tokyo. There's a Uniqlo inside the train station. The only way to go to that Uniqlo would be to pay the fare to go in, right? Because it's inside the trains, where the platforms are. Some of the best food is in these platforms. The train station standing noodle shops, the train station standing sushi places. They're all over, and coffee shops inside the train station, so that when you're making a transfer from one train to the other, you can stop by. Maybe if you're commuting during your dinner time, grab a bite to eat. Yeah, okay. We're off to cops ahead of us, please. Thank you. Okay. You can. Anyway, we don't do that here, and we don't want to manage it. I guess we don't want to pick favorites because that's unfair or whatever. Pick favorites. It's good for the writers. It's good for the customers. It's good for the taxpayers who would like convenience. This is like common sense. You come out of a train station, you want there to be a store there. Now, if that store is price gouging and trading too hard on the fact that it's so convenient, you can always revoke their license, but give their lease to somebody else. You can decide, you can put your thumb on the scale if you need to. That's fine. I think it's perfectly okay. And that's how, like in Japan, that's how they fund partially how they fund their transportation systems. They have a lot of publicly owned trains, Japan National Railway, it's with Subway, which is, not sure if it's probably another public-private cooperation. And then you have, wholly private train lines that own the infrastructure. They own the stores. The Seibu trains, Seibu department store has the Seibu line trains. And when you get off a Seibu train, you're going into a Seibu store or one of the stores that's owned by them. Within that station, you can probably walk to another private line through their department store. And, nobody cares. Everybody likes it. It's convenient. It's all those stores are competing with each other. So competition is alive and well. And so that's not a problem. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that rant right now, but it's something that we need to really look at in the U.S. Oh, and the reason I really thought of this is because, that train, the train that goes from Seattle to Redmond Town Center, that train terminuses at Redmond Town Center, but it does not terminate in Redmond Town Center, just next to it. And you have the Redmond Town Center security guards walking the parking lots, making sure that nobody is using their parking lots to park and go get on the train and go downtown. And I guess to a certain extent that kind of makes sense. But if you build it right, if you actually cooperated with them and had the train emptying out into your mall, they can go get in their cars, and on the way to the cars, they might stop and do some shopping. And that's how it works. So, or you can, just a little ways away, you can build up another, parking lot for them. It's just, there's so many ways around it. There were so many ideas that get squashed because we don't want to mix our local government with our industry, I guess. I don't know why. It's dumb. So anyway, I'm going to go wash the car and get ready for the week. I'm going to I think this time I'm going to try just a little bit heavier editing on this video. And, see what I can come up with the week. This is going to be the best day of the week, I think, in terms of weather. We might have a lot of rainy days, which for the kind of drive and talk like this are fine. I could do that easily, but going to be looking through a wet windshield if I do it with this format. Anyway, that's it for now. So one of the things that I get a lot of compliments on is that how clean the car is. And I know based on an app that I use called Gridwise that I'm pretty well, kind of like in the upper levels of in terms of tips. So that's good. So keeping a car clean encourages people to tip, I guess. When you get when you're in a dirty car, and I've been in several, when I've in my days of being a passenger, one of these things, when you are a long way. Okay, when you are in a dirty car, you feel like, what the hell? Why you couldn't even bother to clean the car? I gotta tell you, it does take a lot of people getting in and out of the car, and dust accumulates way faster than you would think. You gotta keep on top of it. And so I have a Brown Bear car wash monthly, a monthly, what do you call it, membership. So, constantly taking it in to get it washed, even on rainy days. Sometimes you'll have a look at the car and think, wow, that's really grimy on the outside, even though it's raining, all that stuff is coming up off the roads, and it's messy. And so you want to do something about it. So, it's a sunk cost, right? I mean, what do you call it? I don't even know if that's the right term, but it's a cost that, of doing business, you're going to pay that monthly. And hopefully, when it comes out in tips, it'll even out. One of the things that happened with Uber in the early days of Uber and Lyft, the idea was there was no tip. And maybe back in those days, Uber and Lyft drivers, they got paid pretty well. business was hopping. You always had somebody in your car, and so you could make pretty good money. That soon gave way to even the apps having options for tipping. Um, and that then allowed Uber and Lyft to give drivers less and less, um, and hope that they got more and more out of the tips. We keep 100% of our tips. Uber and Lyft don't get a penny of those. Um, and that leads to all kinds of other things that Uber drivers have to consider when they want to get a tip. And it's things that you might not think about when you get into a car. And yeah, some people back in the early days expected their Uber drivers to be at least entertaining, right? I actually heard stories about people who would offer to sing. No, thank you. Please do not sing if I'm in your car. And you better be a damn good singer if you're going to be singing in the car. Um, and and it has to be more than just your opinion, right? So it's got to be like, what are you wasting your time driving Uber? You should be singing, kind of level of singing, right? Um, Funny jokes, having humorous repartee. That's always a lot of fun. Um, and then there's another thing though. So when you get into the car and, let's say you've got a decent Uber driver and they say, good morning, good afternoon, whatever. How's your day going? And you say, fine. You might ask, how's your day going? And they might say, oh, it's going pretty good. Now, if you just let the conversation die, 9 times out of 10, the Uber drivers are going to be quiet. You have to drive the conversation. If you want it to be a friendly conversation, you need to drive it. And if they've clammed up and they're not going to talk, if they're not responding to you, that's a different story. But if they're allowing you your quiet, that's kind of what they thought you wanted. So, if you get into a car and they're boring drivers, they're not talking to you so that's not a good reason not to tip. If you're looking for a reason not to tip, that's not one of them, because they've just given you an opportunity to have a quiet ride if that's what you want. It's happened to me. I came in on the airplane. I was jet lagged. My brain was fried. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't even look at my phone. I just sat there. Um, was almost too tired to sleep. And I can't sleep in a car anyway. So, but I was just too tired and I just didn't want to. The guy didn't say a word. He was nice when he picked me up, and it was pleasant when he dropped me off. Everything in between was silence, and it was golden. And I tipped the guy because I gave him a 20% tip because that's exactly what I wanted at that exact time. And I've had arguments with folks online, other Uber drivers, that say, "Oh no, you have to talk to them, you have to engage them, or they won't tip." And I says, "Well, sometimes that's not what they want, and you have to read the room." So, so if you ever get in the car and they're not engaging you, and they're not, they're letting you, sit with yourself, and maybe they might be a little boring, just know that they're trying in their way to read the room many times. Other times they're just lazy. They don't want to talk. It's just, they just, they just want to get you from point A to point B, get out of my car, give me my money, that kind of thing. So it's always possible too. That was one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, you know, the Uber Lyft rider driver relationship. Some of it is on the rider, some of it is on the driver. Most of it is on the expectation set up by Uber and Lyft. Lyft does not I mean, if I don't honestly know if I've ever used the Lyft app as a passenger before. I've always used Uber, and Uber will nag you. They'll literally nag you to, until you break down and give the driver a tip, or don't. You can say no, thank you, or whatever. But they'll continue to nag you. But I don't think Lyft does. I think Lyft just kind of leaves it up to you, offers it to you, and moves away because you know the because the original model was, you don't have to tip. And Lyft thinks they're giving the riders more, you know, than what, I don't know. And the the Uber Lyft driver relationship is strained to say the least. We don't work for them, but they're constantly trying to manipulate us. And we know for a fact, we have white papers that show that Uber and Lyft's costs for their customers have gone up significantly more than the amount that the Lyft and Uber drivers take home. So the numbers don't match up. So if these expenses that they're claiming, if they're claiming it's more expensive to operate Uber or Lyft, well, they're right, it is, but they're not operating it. We are. They are maintaining the software. They are maintaining the algorithm, and that's it. And maybe their costs for their development team might be up, but I doubt it because I know what the market is like out there, and it's not great. So I don't think that they're having to spend tons of money on software engineers right now, especially since a good portion, up to 70% or more of the software coding that's being done is being done by AI. I know that for a fact. I've been talking to people. I've been asking questions about it. They're required to use AI because it'll be more efficient. There's lots of things about AI that are going to make things more efficient for everybody. And so long as people can keep their full-time jobs, that's great. But it's going to lessen the need for adding people when things get busy, so that that boom and bust thing is probably not going to be happening so much, except for maybe resources, like not human resources, but actual physical resources. So that's gonna ramp up. But where was I? Oh yeah, they're using AI, and they're not going to pass those savings along to the drivers. I could tell you that. In fact, they're working full speed ahead to replace us as well. So driver, so if you like talking to your drivers, get out there and ride and talk right now because that's going away. You'll be talking to an empty seat at some point. Maybe an actual physical Johnny Cab type robot. I doubt it. That would cost money. They don't want to do that. Uh, so that's also happening. So I'm ending my first day of the week. This is already, this little lasted little addendum here was 11 minutes. So I am going to keep on going home, which is where I'm heading right now. This was a good day, and nice sunny day, and I think we're in for some rain coming up. And sometimes rain is good. Sometimes you'd think it would be better in terms of this particular job. You think everybody, a lot of times short people don't want to go short distances because of the rain. So they call us, and then is it worth it even for us? A $3, $4 ride, take them. Anyway, we don't like them, but we'll do them sometimes if we have to. A lot of them in a row would be fine. I'd be all right with that, especially if you tip. Um, That's it. So, as usual, keep your eyes on the road.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.